Okay, what about Jim Stewart?
Jim Stewart I've known for a number of years.
Does he go in there with the superstar divers like?
No, I don't. I really don't think so. I like Jimmy and everything. I dove with him twice, and both times he's had a sinus problem. Was able to get down with diving.
Will he be noted for anything in the future, you think?
Well, you can't hardly eliminate him. A lot of people are going to have him there, but I just wouldn't put him down as that.
Nothing special stands out.
No, he's had the opportunity to dive in the great places and dive with the great people, but I don't regard him as a great guy in the sport because I really don't think he's did that much.
Gotta get his sinuses cleared up. That's
he just carried on from where from where Limbaugh left off. I think Murray could have did a good job, or Parks could have did a good job.
How about Doug Fane?
Oh, Commander Fane?
Francis Douglas Fane?
I didn't know him. I just...
okay, well, let's let him slide. Is Bernie Eppleton a name?
Huh?
Is Bernie Eppleton a name?
No.
Okay. Jim Oxley or Chuck Blakesley?
Well, I went diving with both of them once or twice, and they did a very good job at Skin Diver magazine. And I think you'd have to put them in there someplace.
Do you feel that the pre-Peterson or the post-Peterson magazine has had the most effect on developing scuba diving?
I think the post-Peterson did because, boy, listen, that was a struggle. Those guys really had a struggle.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about before Peterson came into it.
Yeah. When Blakesley and Oxley ran that thing, I think they ran an excellent magazine. They got kind of off the track when Gaffney left them. I like John. I think he's did a lot.
Well, I want to say John next. I'm going to ask you these guys next.
But they really had a hell of a struggle there. Those guys struggled like we did.
How was the magazine different since Peterson took over?
I think the advertisements were better, and I think they did more to promote safety and stuff. And boy, it was a...
How would you change the magazine from what it is now to make it better?
I'd get the slock ads out of there. I'd really have a class magazine if I was going to do it. And that's been my big argument with Zomos. He says, I can't get those ads out of there. I said, well...
You can't. Of course, Peterson dictates what goes
Well, but I told him if he can't do that, then he ought to resign. Of course, he doesn't want to give up a good deal. He travels all over the world, writes anything he wants to, and he probably doesn't work that
Well, what about the editorial content of the magazine, the stories and so forth?
The stories have constantly got better because, they've got better communication between the divers.
Would you like to see some different kind of stories in there?
No, I think they're doing a good job. I don't particularly... The shark story they had in there last time was fantastic, but I don't think it'll do anything for divers. It's scare the hell out of people. Huh?
They're going big on sharks all the way.
Well, I hate to see that because I think that helped Waterworld get out of the diving business.
Yeah.
When you show a guy being bitten, a seal being bitten too by a killer whale, and then you see an eel grabbing a guy's hand and an octopus wrapped around a guy's face.
Well, that's Peterson's influence.
I think
he wants to make another true Argosy magazine. Really.
I think it's a long way to go. I think he'll scare a lot of people out. He'll probably sell a lot of magazines, but he's going to scare a lot of people.
John Gaffney.
John, I argue with him constantly, and yet I like him very much. I think he's really tried to do a lot for diving.
What do you think John's going to be noted for? Primarily.
He'd probably go down as the big arguer. No, he is. I got a lot of respect for the guy. He started out with a shoebox and a couple plastic cards.
Still got a shoebox.
And he came up with a pretty daggone decent program. No matter what you say. In California, his program is useless to me. It really, I think I do a much better job than he does. Now, I might not sell as much equipment as he would, but that, my name of the game is safety first and sales second, and I've always been for that. If a guy has bought all the equipment, then you're pretty obligated to get him through that class, and I think that's the wrong way to go about it. We get the guy through the class, and I might try to tie up an equipment sale, but he doesn't get it, and if he doesn't make the class, then we cancel out all the gear. I've always felt that way, and I'll never be changed.
Well, do you think John will be noted for putting business into the retail
instruction
area?
Yeah. Well, and he's taught the backyard dive shops, the mom and pop shops, how to operate a shop successfully. You've got to sell gear. There's no doubt about it. You cannot make money on diving gear like these 1995 classes and these 2-for-1 classes. I hate them.
You don't have a good John Gaffney story, but you can't remember anything special.
No.
The situation you had on the dive rig. Situation with John.
I haven't been diving with John. I've never been diving with John.
He goes back. You know, all these guys have great stories, Bob.
I have a good story about it here. Just recently, we were coming from a meeting in Los Angeles, and I think Roy Hauser and myself and Roger Hess and John Gaffney were driving down the street together. I don't know who it was, but John Gaffney and I were in the car, and I was in the front seat. And I saw him reach over and grab a pack of empty cigarettes and roll down the window and toss it out on the freeway. And that'll infuriate my brother and I. And so I started tearing up all the papers I had with me in little bitty pieces, throwing them all over the car. And when he got down to the shop, he went in and made a phone call. I went out and grabbed all the trash I could get, threw it in the back of his car, tore it up, threw it in the back of his car. Didn't make him too happy.
He didn't even know it was there.
And if I can ever get the key to his house, I'm going to seal the porpoises off of his wall. He's a funny guy. He at the seminar down in San Diego, they were all sitting around, and he was telling a story, and my wife always calls him ass eyes. And
Ass
eyes. Call up, but this is ass eyes. This Bob there. And there's a guy from Blue Water Diving School that's just telling these fantastic stories about making a 165-foot dive for 40 minutes on a single tank of air. And when he got all finished with it, Gaffney and everybody was sitting around the room, and when he got all finished with it, my wife says, "You're so full of shit, your eyes are brown." And Gaffney liked to roll out of the building laughing. He just thought that was the funniest thing.
He remember that all his life. That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh,
But she really gives him a bad time. We were arguing we went up to my hotel room and argued, and she's, "Get the hell out of here, I'm going to bed. I'm in bed and I'm going to go to sleep." So we had to go and walk out around San Diego to argue. But he's a neat guy. I think he's did a lot for diving.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's did. You know, he's did a lot of things. When Skin Diver, he was really a firm believer in no sales and no discount ads, things like that, and he liked to keep the ads in good order. But apparently, according to Zamola's, once you let a discount ad or a schlocky looking ad like Central Skin Diving has in there, and I told Paul, I said, you know, if I couldn't rule that ad out of my magazine, then I would get out of the business. I think you have the right to do that. I would take that to court and say that's degrading to my magazine to have a discount ad that looks as terrible as some of those ads do. You know, I'm sure Playboy keeps ads they don't like out there that degrade their magazine. You know.
Okay.
Well, I think Peterson can afford to do it too. You know.
Yeah, he's a funny guy. I worked there for a couple of years.
I know him that well too. I know him pretty well too. I don't care for him that much.
He shoots photographs from there. George Bond.
George Bond.
Let's George Bond, Al Benke, Lamphere. Who else? Diving medicine.
Well, I've never met Bond, but I've
read. Which ones are going to be remembered, do you think?
I read his story, and I read his story about 100 feet, and I say the guy's got a lot of balls, and no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But then I read another story that he wrote, and I heard he had to keep rewriting it, and this is one where he got the bends in the testing tower skin diving. And I really have my doubts about that one because, you know, a guy'd have to make a hell of a lot of dives. But I met Banky over at Catalina this summer, and he's a delightful old guy.
Well, how come you met him over there?
He was over there at the big seminar that Andy organized, and they were all over there, and they were making Andy and Bob made a 200-foot dive, or Andy and Chris made a 200-foot dive, and then they came up, and they had the bubble detector on, and
Andy,
Pilmus.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. And Banky was there, and Banky and I were talking, and I'm quite a storyteller, and if there's nothing else to do, I talk. So we got to talking, and I told him it's too bad that we couldn't go back and contact all the guys that have the bends, like Art Broman and Don Sievert, who had a severe case of the bends. I'm sure he got the bends after he got in the chamber, but he is to this day making more and more progress of regaining the feeling in his legs.
Sievert?
Sure.
I didn't know. Is he still laid up?
Oh, no, he's not laid up or anything.
He still has a lot of numbers.
He has a bowel movement problem. He goes to the head about every 7 days, and he has when he has to take a whiz, he has to take
When did that happen on the bends thing with Sievert?
I don't even remember. 10 years ago, I'm sure. But the guy was a fantastic diver, very poor swimmer, not a very good swimmer at all. But the coolest guy underwater I think I've ever dove with, because he has very slow heartbeat.
He's working on your sub thing now, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah. Well, he owns a sub, but Billy and I own part of it. We came in.
Catch him.
He's an absolute genius. The guy is. Leonard Wimberly describes him as a guy that does $5 worth of work for 50 cents. He'll never be rich, and he will do the job until he feels it's done right, even if it costs him 5 times as much to do the job as he's charging. And that's his only problem, is that he's not a good publicity guy. He is so honest that people just love the guy, you know. And they said when we walked into the Los Angeles City, the guy said, you didn't have a chance in hell until Don Sievers started speaking and you started speaking. And right off the bat, you get the feeling that we can trust these guys.
That was on the inspection of the
Yeah, and then when we put the film on, they say, we know we can trust you. You got the only films that we've ever seen of those pipes, see. But I was talking to Benke, and I told him that, and he said, well, you know, it's a shame, but after 2 years, we regard a guy as not getting better at all. Now, Art Broman has got constantly better. Hal Warner's getting better after 5 years. Dr. Ben is making more and more progress. And Don Sievers is getting a feeling back in his legs. He's playing tennis now and everything. So I think he can rejuvenate a lot of it. They don't know anything about it. They don't know that much about it.
Well, which of these guys do you think is Lamphere, Bond, Benke? Is there any other diving doctor that's going to get...
Oh, I don't know. I think you'd have to go... The most spectacular I've heard of, and I've just met him, I don't know how much Benke's even done. I've heard he's one of the old-time guys and everything.
The tables, the original.
And Lamphere came out with the repetitive dive tables, right? But I'd probably have to pick Bond as the most spectacular.
He'll be known for
his diving and trainings and stuff like that. And this ascent from 300 feet kind of struck me up.
How about Owen Lee?
Owen Lee? I don't know him.
How about Joe McGinnis?
Don't know him.
Dr. Joe McGinnis?
Never heard of him.
Well, no, you'll be reading about him. Got some great stories on him. Yeah, let's see. E.R. Cross.
E.R. Cross, I don't know that well. The only thing I can remember about him is when he gave the talks over there at the Linwood Pool.
That's right.
He's saying, handle these bottles very carefully, and he grabbed by the valve and slide it under the table. That's the only thing I know.
Mel Fisher.
Mel Fisher, great competitor. A nice guy, a very nice guy.
You don't have a Mel Fisher story, do you?
Yeah, I do. Mel Fisher was out here about 3 years ago or something. And he called me up and he said, I'd like to take you and your brother to lunch. He said, I've got a business proposition for you.
Oh.
Well, and I called Bill and Bill said, I don't have time to go to dinner with Mel Fisher. So I went, and he and Dolores and I went down to the captain's locker and had dinner. And we did had a light lunch, you know. And he pulls a $40,000 hunk of gold out of his pocket, and he pulls a $30,000 hunk of gold. You know, he's got those 2 gold saucers he carries around, telling me how much treasure. And he says, I'm looking for investors, and I want people like you to get involved because you're divers and stuff. And he said, you could come down and dive off and mark it off as a business trip and everything, and dive Florida. And so I'm not interested in diving Florida. I've dove Florida. I don't like it that well. I'd like to dive Catalina Island. There's a lifetime of diving there. So anyhow, at the end of the thing, he had forgot his wallet, so he couldn't pay the bill. So I had to pick up the check.
I can tell you a couple of stories, but go ahead, London.
But that's it. I never had dove with him, and I got along with him pretty well. A guy called up one day and wanted to buy a gold dredge, and I learned a lot from being a competitor of his. And so I said, he came in, he says, is this Mel's Aqua Shop? I said, no, this is Dive and Surf. Mel's Aqua Shop is in the Riviera. And the guy says, okay, thank you. And I said, would you like to know how to get there? And he said, sure. And I said, well, maybe I can help you with something. I have a complete shop here. What do you need? He said, I need a gold dredge. And I said, I'll sell gold dredge. I want to buy it from Mel Fisher. I said, all right. I said, fine. So I said, listen, I don't think he's open on Sunday afternoon. And I says, and the guy thought, oh, well, he's just putting me on. I said, let's give him a call and find out. So I went over and just dialed the number, 56713 Frontier. And I says, hi, Mel. And he says, hi. And I said, this is Bob at Dive and Surf. I says, are you going to be there? And he said, I'll be here in an hour. And I said, well, there's a guy in here that wants to see you. And I sent him down. Okay. And so I said, now, I walked outside here, and I said, now, here's how you get there. And you go down Catalina, and you go all the way through this residential district to the business district, and then he's right at the end of that. And you go to Palos Verdes Boulevard, you went too far. He's right on the corner. Fine. He said, great. Glad he gave me directions. Wrote down the address and everything. The guy was back in 1 hour. Hey, I want to tell you a story. And I said, what is it? And I said, didn't he have what you wanted? He says, yeah, he had exactly what I wanted, but I won't buy it from him. He said, I went in there and he says, just for hell of it, he said, I asked him where Dive and Surf was, and he says, never heard of it.